අයිබෝන් වනකම් greetings අපගේ විශේෂ ආරාධිත අමුත්තන්ගේ පැමිණීමත් හා සමග අපි අපගේ සැසිවාරය ආරම්භ කරන්න පුළුවන්. So we shall begin the formality of our special event. As is our customary practice, we'll invite a few people to participate in the lighting of our ceremonial oil lamp. Our chief guest here present, the Honorable Acting Minister of Finance, Shahan Semasinghe, is here, and he will be conducted to the lamp by Professor Lakshmana Ravatavala, the President of CMA Sri Lanka, also serving as the Chairman of the CMA Sri Lanka COVID-19 SME Development Committee. Our guest of honor is Thomas Kring, the Acting Director of ILO, Country Office for this country as well as the Maldives. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Priyantha Ratnayaka, Deputy Secretary to the Treasury. Then our guest speaker, who's visiting from Chennai in India, CMA Ramachandran Venkataramani, I beg your pardon. Then Mr. Hennayaka Bandara, Vice President, CMA Sri Lanka. Mr. Suresh Dimel, former Chairman of the EDB. Then Mr. Bandara Rakogama, Head of Refinance Schemes and Special Lending Products. Mr. Vikrama Narayana, DGM of Enterprise Banking, People's Bank. Dr. Nirmal De Silva, Strategy Consultant. Dr. Chamra Bandara, member of the CMA Sri Lanka COVID-19 SME Development Committee. Mr. Chamindu Kumarasari, Management Consultant. Then Mr. Charit Jagoda, Head of Microfinance, LOLC Finance. Mr. Rochelle Fernando of the Bank of Ceylon. Malika De Silva of the Commercial Bank. Mr. Tilak Champika Dhanapala, Senior Manager, SME Business Development with Ceylon Bank. And we would also like to invite an MSME customer also to be part of that lamp lighting. So, the lamp duly illumined, we shall invite those at the head table to move into position. However, there is another formality that is appropriate in recognizing the resonance of this meeting with the world outside, or should I say countrywide. We shall begin with the national anthem.
Siri seta sadhana jeevana ye mata pilidanu mena apa bhakti puja namo namo mata apa Sri Lanka namo 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 mata
සැප සෙත සදනා එවන් අදහස සැපසිරි සෙත සදනා එවැනි වගන්තියක් මෙතැන්ට අදාළ කියලා කියන්නට පුළුවන්. අපි දන්නා තරමට එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ සංවිධානය ඍජුව මේ කාරණයට බැහැලා තියෙන්නේ. මක්නිසාද අද වැනි දිනයක් හෙවත් ජූනි 27 වැනි දවස එක්සත් ජාතීන් ශුද්‍ර කුඩා හා මධ්‍යම ප්‍රමාණයේ ව්‍යවසායයන් නංවාලීමට කටයුතු කරනවා. ඇයි ඒක වැදගත් කියලා අපට කියන්නට පුළුවන්? මක්නිසාද ලෝක ව්‍යාප්තව පවතිනා වූ ආර්ථිකයන්හි එහි කොදුනාරිටය වන්නේ පුද්ගලයන් 250කට අඩු ප්‍රමාණයෙන් කටයුතු කරන්නා වූ නැත්නම් සේවය කරන්නා වූ ආයතන හරහා. So micro, not only small and medium enterprise, but micro has been brought into the scheme of things and has been the focus. ඉතින් ඒ අනුව තමයි CMA ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඇත්තටම ප්‍රයත්නයක් දරන්නේ මේක ඉදිරියට ගෙන යෑමට. ඒ අනුව තමයි මේ සම්මන්ත්‍රණය සකසා තිබෙන්නේ. So there has been an initiative undertaken by CMA Sri Lanka with this particular program, of which you will hear a great deal more. And what is also of interest is that there is an organization set up in 2017, which was specifically designed at that time, in 2017, for, it was under the name, I need to get it right, it was considered to be the SME Credit Guarantee Institution. At this time, an initiative is once again been exerted to revive that, to get it actually functioning, not only existing in name. You are going to hear more of that too. So this becomes a very important forum. මම සිංහලුත් ඒ අදහස ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නම්. එනම් ණය අපකර ආයතනය නැවතවරක් ඒ 2017 පිහිටුවා වූ එම ආයතනය නංවාලීමට මේ අවස්ථාවේදී කටයුතු කරනවා. කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවකුත් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. So that's as much as I need to say on this occasion. We would like to invite your attention as the host of the event, the de facto host, and the president of this organization, namely CMA Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshman R. Vatavela, who has been recognized with the Sri Lanka Sikhamani National Award back in 2019 for his contribution, and he has served in various capacities. Most of you in the professional field would know him as the past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, also served at the South Asian Federation, and the founder president of AAT Sri Lanka and indeed of CMA. So we'd like to invite your attention as Professor Vatavela directs words of welcome.
Thank you very much, Arun. Good morning to all of you. Our chief guest today, Honorable Shehan Semasinghe, the State Minister of Finance. Our guest of honor, Mr. Thomas Kring, the Acting Director, ILO Country Office of Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Our keynote speaker, Mr. R.M.P. Ratnayaka, the Deputy Secretary to the Treasury and also the Treasury representative on the National Credit Guarantee Institution, and our guest speaker, Mr. Ramachandran Venkataramani from India, the Vice President of CMA, the council members, our most valued maybe customers and representatives from the state and private sector banks, our members of our committee, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you this morning to our seminar on the CMA Sri Lanka COVID-19 SME Development Conference on the resurgence of micro, small and medium enterprises and entrepreneurship development, which is really held on a day which is very important to all of us, where we are celebrating the United Nations Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises Day. So we are today celebrating a global event to give recognition to the small and medium industry in Sri Lanka. I will not speak too long because I know that all our members at the head table are having a very busy schedule, and I must thank all of them for kindly consenting to be present. So I must just say that we are very thankful that the ideas, the various areas that we are discussing here, the credit guarantee institution, which has really been something that we had been able to revive, as mentioned by Arun. Maybe it was far back as 2017, they finalized it, but it was there in the pending papers, and we were able to get it done as fast as possible. And in this respect, I must say that the then Minister of Industries, the Honorable Vimal Veeravansa, we went and saw him, and he really took action to take it to the cabinet and get it approved. And also I must thank the External Resources Department and of course Mr. Ratnayak, who is present here, who had been in charge of it, for now finalizing everything and getting it started. So that is a new chapter in the MSME industry, and I think it's a great achievement for Sri Lanka in that respect. And also the new thing that we are now looking at is of course the SME Development Act. We brought the special guest speaker from India, Mr. Venkat Ramani, and he will speak to you. So I think we really want to give results and benefits to the MSME sector. මම විශේෂයෙන්ම වචන ස්වල්පයක් කතා කරන්න කැමතියි. මේ CMA ශ්‍රී ලංකා COVID-19 කුඩා සහ මධ්‍යම ව්‍යාපාර සංවර්ධන සම්මන්ත්‍රණයේ ශුද්‍ර කුඩා සහ මධ්‍යම ව්‍යවසායන්ගේ පුනර්ජීවනය සහ ව්‍යවසායකත්ව සංවර්ධනයට මේකට විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ ශුද්ධ කුඩා සහ මධ්‍යම ප්‍රමාණ ව්‍යාපාරික දිනය සැමරීමට කරන උත්සවයක් හැටියට අපිට සලකන්න පුළුවන්. මම අර ඉස්සෙල්ලා කිව්වා වගේ අපේ ප්‍රධාන අරමුණු දෙකක් තිබ්බා. පළවෙනි එක තමයි අර ණය අපකර ආයතනය. මං හිතන්නේ මේක තමයි හැමදෙනාම ඉල්ලලා තිබ්බේ. මොකද ඒ අයට මේ අර කොලැටරල් නැත්නම් අපකරයක් දීමට හැකියාවක් නැහැ. එම නිසා අද සුළු හා මධ්‍යම පරිමාණ ව්‍යාපාරිකයින්ට බැංකුවලට ගිහිල්ලා ඒ බැංකු මාර්ගයෙන් මේ ණය අපකර ආයතනයෙන් තමන්ගේ ණය ලබා ගැනීමට පහසුතාව තියෙනවා. මම හිතනවා මේකට අපි විශේෂයෙන්ම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා ආසියානු සංවර්ධන බැංකුවට. මොකද ඒ අය විශාල ණයක් දීලා තියෙනවා. මම හිතන්නේ ඩොලර් මිලියන 100ක් දීලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ දෙයක් කිරීම ගැන අපි සන්තෝෂ වෙනවා. පරක්කු වෙලා වුණත් මේක අපිට ඉදිරියට ගෙනියීමට හැකියවීම ගැන. ඊට අමතරව අද අපි විශේෂයෙන්ම අර SME Development Act මම හිතන්නේ එතකොට එක තැනකින් සුළු හා මධ්‍යම පරිමාණ ආයතනට ඒ වැඩ කරගන්න අවස්ථාව තියෙනවා. ඉතින් එමෙ හිතා මම හිතනවා මේ සම්මන්ත්‍රණයෙන් අපිට නිසි ප්‍රයෝජනයකුත් ඒ වගේම මේ සුළු හා මධ්‍යම පරිමාණ ව්‍යාපාරිකයින් මේ රටට කරන සේවය ගැන. මොකද මම හිතනවා අපේ ගරු ඇමතුමා මෙතන ඉන්නවා, අපේ රත්නායක මහතා ඉන්නවා. ඒ සෑම දෙනාම කියයි මේ අයගේ මේ රටට කරන දායකත්වය ගැන. මේ දායකත්වය ඉතා අපි අගය කරනවා. ඒකින්ද තමයි අද මේ සම්මන්ත්‍රණය තිබ්බේ. මම විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ මේ සෑම බැංකුවටම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. මොකද ඒ අය අපිට මේක කිරීමට සහාය දුන්නා. ඒ අයගේ සහාය නැත්නම් අද මේක කරන්න බෑ. මොකද මේ බැංකු තමයි මේ රටේ ආර්ථිකයට පණ දීලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ අයගේ මේ සේවය හින්දා අද රටේ ආර්ථිකයට සුළු හා මධ්‍යම පරිමාණ ව්‍යාපාරිකයන්ට, විශාල ව්‍යාපාරිකයන්ට සෑම දෙනාටම මේ රටේ ආර්ථිකයේ විශාල සංවර්ධනයක් ඇති කරනවා. අද අපි ඉතා අමාරු තත්වයක ඉන්නේ. හැබැයි මේ බැංකුවල හොඳ පාලනයක් ගෙනියලා තියෙනවා. මේවා ඉතා හොඳට පාලනය කරගෙන තියෙනවා. එමෙහි නිසා ඒ අයට හැකි වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ රටට ලොකු සේවයක් කරන්න. එම නිසා මම නැවතවරක් මේ බැංකු වල සාමාන්‍ය අධිකාරීන් සභාපතිවරුන්ට ඒ මණ්ඩලවලට සෑම දෙනාටම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා මේ වගේ වැඩක් කිරීමට ඒ අයගේ සහාය දීම ගැන. බොහොම ස්තුතියි.
වටවල මහාචාර්යතුමාගේ එම කාරණා අපේ හිතට අරගෙන අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් එහෙනම් යමු වී නොපමා. So we have now our guest of honor, Dr. Thomas Kring, who serves as the Chief Technical Advisor with the International Labour Organization. In fact, he's currently managing the Jobs for Peace and Resilience program in Sri Lanka. And also, the program focuses on promoting livelihoods and employment through enterprise promotion and private sector engagement. So that ties in very well with the subject matter of this particular seminar. We'd like to invite Dr. Kring now to the lectern for his remarks.
The Honourable Shehan Simhasinga, State Minister of Finance, Mr. RMP Ratanayake, Deputy Secretary to Treasury and Treasury Representative of CGI, Professor Lasman, President of CMA, other guest speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here today with you to talk about the important topic of enterprise promotion in Sri Lanka. Micro and small, medium-sized enterprises, or MSMEs as we call them, are the backbones of economies worldwide and of the world of work. They're the engine of growth and employment creation, employing more than 2/3 of the global workforce and contribute significantly to GDP growth. As a result, they play a role globally, as well as in Sri Lanka, to reduce poverty, narrowing inequalities, and creating decent and productive employment and achieving social justice. As we know, the SME sector was hard hit by COVID and by the economic crisis. From what we see, the economic crisis was more a devastating blow to the sector in Sri Lanka than COVID was. One of the reasons for this is that despite their importance, many SMEs struggle with low productivity and poor working conditions, often operate in tough business environments, including the large informal economy, and many find it difficult to access resources and opportunities. These challenges meant that COVID and the financial crisis caused a great many of these SMEs to go under. They simply do not have the resources and the networks required to weather the storm. One of the lessons learned is that formalization of enterprises is critical. The lack of formalization is often the key obstacle to growth. Lack of formalization means lack of access to finance, it means lack of access to legal protection, and lack of access to decent work. Informality and absence of registration also meant that many of the initiatives which the Sri Lankan government put in place to ease the impact of COVID and the crisis on the sector were not accessible to many of these small and medium enterprises, as they operate in the informal economy. And to this day, we still see that despite the government support, the SMEs struggle to create ties to formal financial markets, instead having to rely on informal sources of financing. All this means that the full potential of this sector in terms of employment creation and contribution to economic growth is not being realized. The ILO, together with the government and our labor market partners, are working to address this. As said, micro, small, and medium enterprises are great engines of employment creation, of decent work creation. But women and young people working in these enterprises face additional constraints and discrimination. Special attention needed to be given to these groups to allow the full potential they represent to be realized. Skills is another critical element. Giving young people marketable skills, both to make them more highly productive workers, and business skills was to help improve the survival rate of newly started businesses and help established business grow. The ILO has implemented its global Start and Improve Your Business and Know About Business programs in Sri Lanka, creating entrepreneurs and giving them the tools to succeed, benefiting thousands of Sri Lankans. Of course, as we see everywhere in the world, a stable policy environment is critical to attract foreign investments, which can help sectors develop and create opportunities for small enterprises to act as suppliers. These are all elements of an enabling environment, once can be created through social dialogue. However, promotion of micro, small, and medium enterprises is not just about creating an enabling environment. We need entrepreneurs. We need young people with vision and ideas to start the next international success. And entrepreneurship starts from the first grade, or even before. We need to get children curious about entrepreneurship, we need to let them explore and develop ideas. If they become entrepreneurs, that's great. If they adopt the entrepreneurial spirit, great. Both private sector and public sector can benefit from this, from having employees who question things, who look at how can we do things more effectively, more efficiently, how can we develop and deliver the services we have to deliver to our clients. Introduction of entrepreneurship is a start. We need to promote and celebrate entrepreneurship, recognize the young men and women who are brave enough to take on the challenge of becoming independent entrepreneurs. We need to change the perception of entrepreneurs. So when a young person comes home and says, I want to start my own business, that the family and the peers encourage this decision and supports this challenging journey. I'm proud to say that the ILO, working with the Chamber of Commerce, are promoting just that. We are encouraging young people to explore entrepreneurship through our Spark competition, and I have left some flyers outside. I hope you have a look at them, to get them curious about entrepreneurship and to see the great contributions it can provide to them, their families, communities, and the country as a whole. The goal of the ILO is to ensure decent work for all, and we work closely with the government of Sri Lanka, with the trade unions, and with the Employees Federation to achieve this. In that regard, micro, small, and medium enterprises are critical, and despite the obstacles which make it difficult for them to fully utilize their potential, but initiatives such as this, such as what we're here today for, helps drawing attention to the opportunities the sector represents, and is an important support, and I applaud CMA for this important initiative, and I wish you all success. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you too, Thomas. That was very important to recognize, even as it was very sobering to consider the fact that there is still a need to nurture entrepreneurs in our system of education. It is still lagging behind. So the initiatives that you outlined seem the best way forward. We now would be inviting our chief guest, as was mentioned earlier by Professor Wattavala. He has an agenda elsewhere too to pursue, and therefore will be taking leave of us a little earlier. So the Honourable State Minister, Mr. Semasinghe, is an alumnus of the University of Peradeniya, where he pursued and read for his MBA, and he represents his constituency of Anuradhapura, and more importantly, in his realm and the portfolios that he has even previously undertaken, microfinance and self-employment has been a function that he has served in the development thereof, and also currently serves in the Public Finance Committee and the Ministerial Consultative Committee on Finance and Economic Stabilization and National Policies. So let's invite our chief guest, Mr. Semasinghe.
Good morning. The acting director of the ILO, Mr. Thomas, the deputy secretary to the treasury, Mr. Ratnayaka, Mr. Venkatramani, I hope I got your name right, also the president of CMA Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshmana Vattavala, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to thank the president of CMA Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshmana Vattavala, and its members for inviting me to inaugurate the UN MSME Day Conference 2023, organized by the committee with the active support of the commercial banks and financial houses. The celebration held globally will provide the public awareness and recognition to the MSME sector and the contribution of the banking sector to the development of the sector in Sri Lanka. I'm aware that the CMA Sri Lanka COVID-19 SME Development Committee comprises of professional bodies, chambers of commerce and industry, commercial banks, and industry experts who have been meeting since April 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic to find solutions to challenges faced by the SME sector. We are all aware that this MSME sector forms the backbone of the economy and accounts for 52% of the GDP and 45% of the total employment, whilst making a more than 75% of the total number of enterprises in Sri Lanka. I'm happy to note the setting up of the Sri Lankan National Credit Guarantee Institution, which has been approved by the Cabinet and the Ministry of Finance. Setting up of the Credit Guarantee Institution included tireless work and is now finalizing arrangements with the Asian Development Bank, selected commercial banks and financial institutions that are participating in the equity capital. Access to finance due to unavailability of adequate collateral requirements is one of the difficult challenges and a constraint faced by entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka. The Credit Guarantee Institution is set up to be the solution for this challenge. The National Credit Guarantee Institution, with the support of the commercial banks and financial institutions, will be a milestone in MSME finance in Sri Lanka. The institution have been a great success in countries such as Korea as well as Malaysia, where the MSMEs are thriving, and I'm confident this will make a significant contribution to the development and growth of SMEs in Sri Lanka. Restructuring and rehabilitation of MSMEs and the need for entrepreneurship to accelerate economic growth and development should be pursued vigorously for the benefit of the youth of the country. I'm confident that the professional organizations such as CMA Sri Lanka will be able to develop financial literacy and provide knowledge on costing and pricing of goods and services to make enterprises competitive and prices affordable to the general public. Basically, if you see, Sri Lanka is recovering from the worst economic crisis we have had since independence. We are very confident by the end of the year, the economy will stabilize fully. And as planned, we could achieve growth in 2024. But this challenging period is very important for us because we know Sri Lankans have been resilient in many occasions. As the President and the government, we were compelled to take measures that brought short-term pain to people. We do understand that. But if we had not taken those decisions, we wouldn't have recovered this fast. Certain other countries who also face and who are facing distress are yet to recover. Certain countries are getting hit at this particular juncture. So we all should get together in the government's effort to recover the Sri Lankan economy. And while the recovery is taking place, we do acknowledge the fact that the SME sector is the key. From the government's policy making, we will support the SME sector. And also we have a dedicated institution within the government framework called the Samurdhi Development Department. This department is dedicated to help grassroots and rural entrepreneurs. The prime duty of this department is to identify, train, and to assist entrepreneurship at the rural level. We know all banks are helping entrepreneurship as well as other financial institutions. But at the same time, this particular department, who has an employment of 21,000, if I'm right, is trained to support this MSME sector in Sri Lanka. So the biggest burden what they had in performing their duty in the cash transfer for the poor and the vulnerable has been taken out from them. So their prime focus should be to ensure the rural economy will get the necessary adequate number of entrepreneurs who are capable of contributing to national productivity as well as the growth of the economy. The challenging period is not over. Since the basic necessities are available in the market, most of the citizens feel that we have fully recovered from the crisis. We have not fully recovered from the crisis. But of course, the economic pressure is easing out. The interest rates are coming down, which will have a positive impact on the SME sector. The rate of inflation is coming down with all the measures, the monetary policy measures as well as fiscal policy measures taken both by the central bank and the Ministry of Finance. That will also ease pressure on the general public. The inflation is coming at a faster rate than we anticipated. We anticipated the inflation rate to be a single digit by the month of December, but eventually we could achieve that end of July or during the month of August. So the economy is recovering. We are getting all the support from our bilateral creditors. The President just concluded a successful visit of France as well as the UK. The Paris Club Secretariat is coordinating the bilateral engagements with our creditors on behalf of Sri Lanka. And I'm sure as the bankers, you must be anxiously waiting to see the process of the domestic debt optimization. I'm sure very soon we should be able to announce the strategy. So we have worked out we are working out different scenarios with the help of our advisors as well as the IMF mission. So we will ensure domestic debt optimization will not have a negative impact on the banking system and the financial system. So we have been repeatedly telling this. Our optimization process will not have a negative impact on the banking system or the financial system in Sri Lanka. So let us stand together. It's going to be another challenging 6 months for us. Let us remain resilient the way we were, and I'm sure year 2024 would be a more successful year for Sri Lanka economically and otherwise. So let me stop here. I thank once again to Professor Vatawala for inviting me. And you have to excuse me, I won't be able to stay for a longer time. We have few other engagements taking place this week, because this week is a very important week for the Ministry of Finance. I'm sure Mr. Ratnayak also might need to leave a little bit early after his keynote speech. He's the expert in designing the institution. Also, I'm sure Mr. Ratnayak will brief you more on technical terms on how the bilateral negotiations with our creditors are going on. And things are looking positive, and we want everybody to support us. Thank you very much, and all the very best.
There certainly was a positive vibe in those remarks by Mr. Semasingham, who we now invite to pause until Professor Vatawala hands over a token of appreciation for him having served today as our chief guest. Right. There we are. Action is being taken. So we noticed in those remarks addressed to you by our chief guest that in fact the rural economy is going to remain in focus. There are other indices that are already surfaced and are being attended to, but that rural economy, that focus must remain, and he mentioned that value has been placed where it ought to be. So, right. There we are. Okay, to Dr. Kring as well, a token of appreciation, yes. That's our guest of honor. So yes, as is indicated, they will be taking leave of us. An introduction has already been accorded our keynote speaker by the previous speaker. However, it is noteworthy that Mr. Ratnayaka has his topic already placed before us, the Sri Lanka Credit Guarantee Institution and its role in supporting MSME in this country. That's the keynote which will be sounded. And of course, he's the Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, Ministry of Finance, and he's an alumnus of the University of Peradeniya and also read for his master's degree at the Agriculture University in Norway. Interestingly, he has extensive experience in development planning and budgeting, and he has held positions previously in the Department of National Planning and the Department of External Resources. And he serves in other capacities as well while serving the Treasury. He's the Director of the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank as well. And no doubt, all of that experience will come into play in his current role with regard to the Sri Lanka Credit Guarantee Institution. We'd like him now to speak and tell us more in the keynote.
Thank you for kind introduction. Professor Lakshman Arwatwala, President CMA and Chairman CMA Sri Lanka SME Development Committee. Mr. Ramachandran Venkataramani, guest speaker today, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me to grace this occasion. It is indeed an honor and privilege for me to join this important event and deliver the keynote speech. Let me take 1 second to extend my appreciation to the Institute of Certified Management Accounts of Sri Lanka and SME Development Committee, in particular Professor Lakshman Arwatwala and his team for organizing this conference in line with the UN MSME Day, focusing on an important theme, resurgence of micro, small and medium enterprises and entrepreneurship development. I must also thank them for selecting National Credit Guarantee Institution, NCGI, as an important topic for discussion today. I think it's very timely. As Honorable Minister already mentioned, SMEs, going forward, SMEs have to be recognized as a driving force of the new development journey of the government. Okay, in my speech today, I will briefly touch on SME sector challenges and difficulties, and Dr. Thomas also briefly touch on those. And then the need for sustainable credit guarantee institution, and finally the current status and the way forward of the National Credit Guarantee Institution. I'm sure some of you have already know the actions we have taken, because some of you are representing the participating institutions also. So, ladies and gentlemen, similar to other emerging economies, the SME sector in Sri Lanka is the most significant economic sector, contributing more than 52% to the country's GDP. This sector has been identified as a strategic sector in the overall development policy of Sri Lanka, and is viewed as a change agent for inclusive economic growth, regional development, job creation, and poverty reduction. Importantly, SME sector support broad-based equitable development and increase opportunities for women and youths to participate in the country's economic growth. The sectoral level contribution of the SMEs is also very significant. If you look at the pre-COVID data, SMEs accounted for about 65% of total tea production in our country, 50% of apparel and garment manufacturing, more than 70% of road transportation sector, 80% of domestic trade activities, 45% of tourism industry, and around 50% of the local construction. So it is very diverse and important sector with regard to the economic development. But as previous speakers mentioned, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has had an unprecedented impact on Sri Lanka's economy. Due to the multiple economic downturns experienced from late 2019, the business environment have changed drastically, and business activities of SMEs have been deteriorated continuously. As a result, nearly, according to the numbers available to the ministry, 40,000 SMEs completely or partially stopped their operations during this COVID period. The government has taken all necessary measures to mitigate the negative economic impact, and continues to support SME sector through various programs, including stimulus programs, financial support, and the import substitution mechanisms. The debt moratorium introduced by the government in consultation with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka were notably beneficial for the local business community in overcoming the current difficulties. But still, SMEs continue to struggle to become a robust, innovative, and technology-driven competitive global competitors. They face numerous obstacles, limited access to markets and the entrepreneurial networks, low participation in value chain, inadequate infrastructure are some of the challenges they are facing. Meantime, the greatest obstacles they are currently facing are the lack of capital and technology. So due to high interest rates, rigid credit evaluation criteria adopted by the banking sector, and over-reliance on collateral-based lending by the banking system, it is very difficult for small and medium-sized enterprises to access to low-cost financing. We know that traditional banking system is more favorable to provide collateral-based loans instead cash flow-based lending due to unpredictability nature and the risk associated with SMEs. Even if some concessionary financing is arranged by the government, the majority of SMEs can't benefit because either they have already been financially exhausted or they don't have collateral to provide. Therefore, for the SME sector to access the financing, it requires low-cost SME funding lines and well-established support schemes like credit guarantees and insurance schemes. I think we know in the past there were several fund-based or project-based guarantee schemes implemented time to time, but most of them were not successful as expected. Due to various reasons, including slow claim processing, limited guarantee coverage, and high premiums. So the need for a permanent institution for credit supporting financing the SMEs has been felt for a long time, and the Treasury has taken action to establish a national credit guarantee institution as a long-term solution to this problem. Government has sought technical and financial support from Asian Development Bank for this purpose. We obtained technical support from ADB to design the governance and institutional structure of the NCGI. In the analysis, we studied different operational models currently exist in other countries like Japan, Korea, Malaysia, and Thailand to adapt the best model suitable for our country and our context. Accordingly, I'm happy to say that the National Credit Guarantee Institution has formally established as a public limited company in February this year. Still, we are in the process of finalizing the institutional and other operational arrangements. So, if you allow me to highlight some of the key features of the Credit Guarantee Institution, one important factor is the sufficient initial capital to provide the fund-based credit guarantee products. So the NCGI will start its operation with a capital base of approximately 35 billion rupees. Government will provide approximately 31.5 billion rupees as initial capital with the support of Asian Development Bank. And subsequently, we are expected to raise the additional capital through the other sources, including the capital market. ADB will initially provide $50 million as an advance, and the balance $50 million will be topped up as the second part of the equity. But they will do it after comprehensive assessment of the performance of the institution in the initial stage. So we have to show that the institution is performing well in order to get the second part of the equity capital. Equity participation is must for the PFIs, and they will invest about 3.5 billion rupees, representing 10% of shareholding structure in the capital base. So the total guarantee exposure will be 175 billion rupees with 5-time leverage to capital base in the long run. After comprehensive market analysis done by the Asian Development Bank in consultation with the Finance Ministry, 21 participatory financial institutions representing 14 licensed bank and 7 licensed non-bank financial corporations have been selected to invest in the NCGI at the initial stage. And out of them, 13 PFIs, 10 licensed bank and 3 non-banking financial corporations have expressed their willingness to join as the initial equity contributors or shareholders of the institution. Others, I hope that they have indicated that they will join in the second stage where the second portion of the equity capital comes from the ADB. If you look at the governance structure, it's very similar to the any other financial institutions like commercial banks. The governing board will comprise of 9 directors, 4 members representing the government, Minister of Finance and the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. I see Assistant Governor is here. 2 members representing licensed bank and the non-banking financial corporation, and the remaining 3 directors are coming as an independent directors and will be appointed in consultation with the ADB. So ADB will suggested best caliber personnel in the industry for us to choose as independent directors. There will be several board subcommittees, as in any of the financial institutions, the risk management, audit and investment, and the HR subjects. And as I mentioned earlier, we are now finalizing the administrative structure, and it will comprise of several departments, including guarantee administration, claims department, and the risk management department, reporting to a chief executing officer, and internal audit department reporting to an audit committee. So the operation guidelines are being prepared in parallel, and proposals will be appraised or evaluated on individual basis with proposed guarantee coverage of at least 65 to 67%. So this proposed structure will be fixed for initially for 2 years, after which the company will invite other qualified licensed bank and the non-banking financing institutions to invest. To make room for other qualified investors, the government share will be reduced from 90% to 51%. And once the company becomes profitable, it will be listed on the stock market and made open to private investors. So that's our plan. According to my estimations and predictions, the NCGI will be adequately financed, profitably and efficiently managed with free of third-party influence. The institution will run with the highest standard of corporate governance and the risk management with the support of the central bank to ensure its long-term viability. I'm sure that these principles will guarantee that the NCGI maintains a solid credit rating in order to attract participating financing institutions in future. The structure of joint ownership will mitigate the risk of adverse selection and moral hazard associated with the PFIs originating and monitoring the guarantees loan. PFIs will appoint board members who represent their perspectives as consumers of guarantee services and equity investors in NCGI operations. So our plan is to, within a couple of days, we will issue the second share issuances. We will sign the shareholder agreement with the participating the institutions very shortly. So hope that we can fully implement the NCGI towards last quarter of this year, if everything goes well. So that's the structure and some details of the NCGI, but the establishment of NCGI will not solve all the problems in the SME sector. And there is much more work to be done to improve the sector performance. Sri Lanka's SME should continue to align with new trends around the global value chains, such as expanding from manufacturing to services, adapting environmentally and socially responsible practices, and introducing quality accounting and auditing standards for transparency. Despite the fact that this transition will expose SMEs to more intense international competition, the ensuring level playing field on the global market will reward those with adaptable business models. So let me stop here and thank once again Professor Laxman and the Institute of Certified Management Accounts of Sri Lanka for organizing this forum. And I wish for fruitful deliberation at the panel discussion. Thank you very much and have a good day.
So our keynote was also useful in being able to recognize that things are happening and are in fact moving forward, even if incrementally. We're having a token of appreciation which will be handed over to our keynote speaker now. Wonderful. Thank you very much. There's benefit that will accrue from what we might refer to as a case study, usually. And this today is no exception. We are privileged to have with us a visitor from India, who is in fact a director of Westcott Electricals Private Limited of Chennai. Mr. Venkataramani completed his studies in science as a bachelor's degree from Madras University, and his realm of interest has been science. But interestingly, and with relevance to this topic under discussion today, he's a small-scale industrialist. And that's how he started in 1976. I'm not going to steal his story, he's going to tell you that, but maybe just as a background. Small-scale industrialist. But he also taught himself something. Yeah, he followed a course at the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and completed his CMA there. Now, this organization that he began, as I said, in 76, supplies critical components to several multinational companies, some of which are familiar to us. Whirlpool of USA and Bosch in Germany, Panasonic in Japan, and there are others too which may not be familiar to us. So that's the kind of work that he does with Westcott Electricals Private Limited. So let's learn. Mr. Venkataramani.
Thanks, Professor Lakshman Vatawala, for inviting me to this conference. It is a great privilege. Actually, it is an honor to me also. And Honorable Deputy Secretary to the Government, Mr. Ratnanayake, distinguished guests, my dear friends. Actually, this MSME is a it plays very important role in the economy of any country, not only this one, Sri Lanka, but if you take Europe or USA or any other developed country, Japan or this one, they have all developed MSME units focusing on critical products. They take one product, for example, if there is a bicycle, all the products in a bicycle is not made by one unit. One fellow makes only the handlebar, other fellow makes only the wheels, another person makes only the spokes. Like that, it is people specialize on a particular skill and make products for global market. That is how MSME is built at various places actually. The successful MSME, this one, if you see, I'll explain it more during my further presentation. And it requires a proper guidance, regulation, and control from the government side also. See, that is very important. So for that, we have to have a. It is not clear there. Huh? Okay. So a regulation, legislation is very much important to focus and develop MSME units actually. And the Government of India they had earlier one small industries legislation was there. It was replaced by a new legislation during 2006 actually. And in India, if it is to be an all India legislation, it has to be passed by both houses of parliament, one upper house and known as Rajya Sabha, and a lower house known as Lok Sabha. It was passed in 2006, and the main focus of this is to promote, regulate, and support the MSME units through a legislation actually. And this legislation brings all other departments into the development of MSME units actually. It is not just passing a legislation, it coordinates with the other departments. For example, all the resources available, labor resources, material resources, finance and other banking sector, all those resources are brought through this legislation. And the registration is done, it is a very simple process, it is done online actually. Anybody can go to the website and register. And the advantage of this one is registration is, your information is automatically taken from income tax, value-added tax, what we known as GST in India. It is a value-added tax actually. Customs, imports and exports, customs duty and other things. Even company law, all those informations are brought under single registration. Once you have a registration number, if you put the registration number, you get all the information at once. This one. In future, now a new labor code has come into existence, and they may bring the labor legislation also, information about the labor department also into this one, so that how many people are employed in MSME, how much is the value addition, all those things will be brought under single legislation. See, the first point is classification. The units, there is a micro unit, there is a small unit, there is a medium-sized unit. This classification has to be pakka. The government passes through notifications frequently, stating that which is what is known as a micro unit. Normally in India it is based on investments in plant and machinery. If you have 10 lakhs plant and machinery, 1 million rupee plant and machinery investment, it is known as micro unit. If it is slightly above, up to a particular, say 10 million, it is a small unit. Still higher, it is known as medium unit. In addition, turnover is also this one. The maximum turnover for a medium-sized unit is 250 crores. If they cross the 250 crores, that is 2,500 million rupee turnover, then they come out of this MSME purview actually. Then very, very important, my earlier speaker, Deputy Secretary spoke about this as one. He spoke about the credit. Credit carries risk. Most of the bankers are here. You have to carry a lot of risk when you extend public money. Basically, you are handling public money, getting deposits from public, and you have to deploy, risk-free investments actually. So this extension of credit, extension of easier credit is the first objective. Then at the same time, the MSME units, the main problem for the MSME units is the payment, because realization of trade receivables. See, delayed payments will kill MSME, particularly during this COVID period. Lot of MSMEs were closed down because payments were not forthcoming from the bigger units. So through the legislation, they ensure that the payment has to be made within 45 days. Any MSME supplies to a large unit or a government department or public sector undertaking, whatever it is, they have to compulsorily get payment within 45 days. That is very, very important. It is protected by a legislation. There is an arbitration committee at every state level, because India has got several states, because 28 states and a few union territories are there. Each state has got a arbitration, this one, it has got a powers of a civil court actually. So this payment to MSME units from large units as well as government departments has to come in time. So protection against delayed payments is guaranteed in the legislation itself. Then credit guarantee scheme, our Deputy Secretary spoke just now actually, that is also very important. Then through the legislation, what they do is they create common facilities. Normally, it is a cluster-based approach is now promoted in India actually. As I said earlier, if you want to make a bicycle, Ludhiana in Punjab is a place where bicycles are manufactured. And nobody makes a full bicycle. Somebody makes a spokes, somebody makes a bell, somebody makes a handlebar, somebody makes a seat. So like that, each and every unit focuses on one particular component of the bicycle. And in fact, bicycle is assembled at dealer point, at selling point. It is not assembled from the factory, if you really see actually. Similarly, every product. It is not just an engineering product, it's easier to this one because there are hundreds of components are involved in every engineering product. Then there are some, when you go for a cluster-based approach, the common facilities can be provided. For example, every MSME unit cannot invest in testing facilities because big, costly testing machines they cannot have in-house. So government can promote a common testing facility center. So they can do the testing of components, because when you are looking for global market, the quality is very, very important. So the testing facilities can be brought under single this one. Another important is this one, this pollution, because we are all talking about environmental protection, pollution control and other things. For example, the leather-based industries, they pollute this one, water levels are polluted, water is polluted in this one, or textile industries where they do the coloring, dyeing and other things are happening. They pollute the water actually. So the pollution control department insists that they should have a pollution control equipment and they should not discharge effluents to the water bodies or something. So every MSME unit cannot install all the pollution control. So they go for a common effluent treatment plant where they pay some small amount and avail the service. Effluent treatment as a service is provided in the cluster-based approach actually. Then skill development, manpower development, that is very, very important. That also they provide training institutes for employees to upgrade the skills, because the technology is going up every day and new training, new focus, new training is required. Those training, this one also is done from the skill development centers actually. Then last but not least, the marketing support. Suppose if a cluster, from a cluster a product is developed, that product has to be marketed globally. See, MSME unit cannot go and exhibit their products on an individual basis in a foreign country. In Europe, suppose in Germany you are conducting a exhibition. It is not possible for the MSME units. This, what the government is doing is, they participate in an exhibition, they take a big hall and they split it into different stalls, and they give each and every MSME unit can participate actually. Whoever is interested in participating in this one, for marketing the products globally, that is also very, very important support program, the exhibitions, seminars, and whatever this one, trade promotion activities, you can do it through this one. The legislation provides all these things actually. Not in the main legislation, subsequently they frame rules. The rules, they bring all those facilities actually. Then labor code also is another very important. My earlier speaker, ILO representative, was here actually. See, one side you have to protect the labor. At the same time, you cannot make the MSME units fill the forms, and this one compliance mechanism will be very tough and difficult. So simplified labor code is very, for MSMEs it is available actually. It protects the interest of the working class, and at the same time, compliance is simplified. See, the MSME units problems are, because earlier, at one point of time when I started my unit way back in the mid-70s, we have to fill 69 different forms for labor, for sales tax, income tax, company law, like that, so many things. Because some fire inspector will come and this one, that you don't have fire safety equipments. So many, because they should focus on their products, their quality, their productivity, their cost efficiency, all those things only they have to focus. They should not be distorted to get into other legislations. So this labor law also, it is simplified. At the same time, whatever minimum requirements are met actually, standard requirements, whatever. Now, as I said earlier, we talked about the credit guarantee scheme. There is receivable financing, because there is a 45 days mandatory payment. This one, one has to make payment to the MSME units within 45 days, for which we have the Reserve Bank of India, equivalent to your central bank, what we call is Reserve Bank of India. They have brought out some guidelines actually. There is a digital platform like your stock exchange actually. The electronic stock exchanges, today all the stock exchanges are electronic. The trade receivable discounting system, for which an electronic platform, multiple platforms are there, not one platform. Reserve Bank only licenses the platform actually. They approve, regulates the platform actually. Regulating authority is Reserve Bank. As per this MSME Act, the maximum permissible limit is, credit limit is 45 days. And MSME sellers upload their invoices in the platform. After you supply goods to a large unit or government undertaking or public sector, you upload your invoices. And the buyer digitally confirm that we have received and the goods are in good condition, quality is accepted. So they digitally confirm through their banks. So their banks is also involved in the whole thing actually. Next step is the invoices are put into auction, that is interest rate. Whoever bids for the lowest rate of interest, MSME gets a benefit actually. See, this is very, very important, this one, because now, for example, outside interest rates are 8%. Normally bank, if I borrow from the bank, 8-9% minimum you have to pay. Whereas we were able to discount the bills at 7%, 6%. Because there is one small industries development bank of India, which is All India Bank, promoted by Reserve Bank of India. They come and discount this one. It is a refinancing institution basically. In this platform, they come and bid for at 7%, 6% like that, they bid this one. So once this amount is, discounting bank is identified, they discount this one for the differential period, because if you supply goods today, you cannot get it discounted today itself. You have to upload it in the platform, the other party has to confirm, your buyer has to confirm. Once these two things are done, immediately it is put in, within few minutes it is decided actually. The auction is not for a whole day or something, it is only for a few minutes actually. Once it is discounted, the money is digitally credited to the MSME account. So it is without recourse. It is very, very important. Once this one is, the buyer confirms the liability, it is, amount is passed on at a very attractive rate of interest to the MSME buyer. Then on the due date, the larger unit, whoever is a buyer, he has to pay to the discounting banks actually. That also digitally it is done actually. Nothing is physically done, everything is done through digital transaction only. Suppose any dispute comes in this, it is Reserve Bank of India is the final authority to decide this one. Regulation is done by the central bank. Your central bank has to do this one. Buyer says that the quality of goods is not good, it is not accepted, so I am not paying, like that. He cannot create problems at a later date. But even if a problem comes, it is settled by central bank, so that it is not going to a court or something actually. Dispute redressal mechanism is very fast actually. See, the next very, very important, my earlier speakers were also, including the minister as well as the other ILO representative, everybody spoke. This mentoring startups is very, very important. All these startups, mostly if you see, the engineers only start the unit actually, new unit, manufacturing unit. It is promoted by engineer. He is not aware of finance, he is not aware of other regulatory frameworks and other things. So mentoring is possible through the this one. If the legislation, normally what they do is the cluster approach, they put a mentor who is an experienced entrepreneur. So they create unicorn companies. Unicorn companies means the company with an idea, they become a big this one. For example, if you must have noticed, this Ola is a cab, taxi, this one. I don't know, you have Uber or Ola is a? The Ola is entrepreneur, is a IIT graduate engineer actually. And he created a software only. It's an application software. In the mobile it is there. And that valuation of the company is now few $1 billion. The unicorns, like that, lot of startups and unicorns are now coming up in a very big way. Entrepreneurship development is a very, very important role of the government actually. They only create value for the country actually. So that is one area where this legislation can promote entrepreneurship development also. Then the entrepreneur who is this one, they may not have money. Venture capital funds can come. It can come from globally, not necessarily within Sri Lanka. You attract, because you require foreign exchange, you get funds globally. Only thing is you have a regulatory mechanism, because ultimately the entrepreneur is not deprived of his this one. That regulatory, you have a regulatory framework. Not only that, within Sri Lanka also, the cloud funding from high net worth individuals. Suppose a person is worth $100 million. For him, putting $0.1 million is not a risk. But he requires this one, some regulatory framework, control framework, because the other fellow, the entrepreneur, should not swallow the money and run away. That is also very important. So regulatory mechanism comes in the whole setup actually. This legislation, not only the main legislation, through the rules and notifications, they can bring more this one focus, so that lot of entrepreneurs are created. This cluster approach is now is very much emphasized by the government of India. What is happening? We have got more than 750 districts, to be around 766 districts throughout the country. And each district has got some potential. It is they identify what are the natural resources available, raw material available. They identify actually. Policy makers identify the resource. Policy makers identify resources available area-wise. For example, you have got some 9 provinces, I think, and you have got around 25 districts or so. So each district has got some unique potential. You identify those potentials. And what is the raw material available, what is the other facilities available, and then what products you can make out of it. Probably CMA Institute is already SME Development Committee and other things, they are doing a good job actually. They have to, this one, value-added products, because CMAs are very much capable of calculating the value addition at each and every stage. That's where the role comes in the picture actually. So this value addition is very, very important. That has to be properly calculated and properly recorded also. And now the government has to facilitate manufacture of products. When you manufacture a product, what is the size of the unit is very, very important. Because if you have a very small unit making only few components, it will not be competitive. At one particular level only, the product will be globally competitive. So that CMA Institute can play a role in identifying the economic size of the unit actually. You have to make the product globally competitive. That too has to be your role actually. Because how Japan, how Korea, South Korea, how European countries, they all did, how now today China and India are doing. You make the products globally competitive. Then only you will succeed and the country will succeed. That's very important. And now, if you market the products globally, you have got a foreign exchange problem. Last year, I know very well that your economy went through this one. After IMF bailout, you are now recovering. Earning foreign exchange is very, very important. And for that, your product has to be technically acceptable to the global market. Quality-wise, you have to meet the global standards. And it has to be cost competitive. Okay. And by doing all these things, the government is not doing it free of cost. Ultimately, they ensure that all the resources are effectively and efficiently utilized. Then they create entrepreneurs to grab the opportunities. They don't get into business. They only create entrepreneurs. Then third is, it creates more employment for all the citizens. Because everybody cannot be an entrepreneur. You require workforce also. So you create employment, you do skill development, you create employment. And they can earn valuable foreign exchange. Foreign exchange is a very, very important this one for Sri Lanka today actually. And the government gets lot of tax revenues through direct and indirect taxes, that income tax, value-added tax and other taxes, customs duty, everything they get lot of revenues. And ultimately it will improve the economy of the country. Your goal is to get out of this present situation and you have to prosper. As from India, we want a prosperous neighbor. We don't want this one. Sri Lanka has to prosper and get back to its past glories. We all here to support you. We wish you all this one. Thank you.
Thank you too. That was a cheerful thought. You want a prosperous Sri Lanka. Right, so as we did here in the lyric of the national anthem, yes, Sundara Siri Barini, not enough. We have to also have the progress that the people will also benefit from. We conclude the formality of our inaugural. That's where we are. There's more to come later on in the technical sessions to follow. But to close this session, we'd like to invite the head of refinance schemes and special lending products, HNB, a member of the CMA Sri Lanka COVID-19 SME Development Committee, who will speak after we have a token of appreciation, is it? A token of appreciation to our guest speaker from Chennai, Mr. Venkatramani. Yes, so the concluding remarks and words of thanks from Mr. Rakukam. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Good morning. Our CMA President, Professor Vatavala, and Mr. Venkataraman, and all invitees. On behalf of the COVID-19 SME Development Committee, it is my pleasure and privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this special occasion. Let me first and foremost thanks to our chief guest, Honorable Shan Semasinghe, State Minister for Finance, despite of his busy schedule, has found time to grace this occasion. Thank you, Minister. I would like to also express our heartiest thanks to our guest of honor, Thomas Kring, Acting Director for ILO Sri Lanka and Maldives, and also our keynote speaker, I think just now he left from this here, Mr. Piyantha Ratnayaka. He is the Deputy Secretary of Treasury. And thank you, sir, for your participation and given the valuable thoughts during his keynote speech. And also thank you very much, Mr. Venkataraman, all the way from India, to attend and present Indian practices here. And thank you, sir, for your valuable time and your presence here. And we are grateful to our committee chairman and president of CMA Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshmana Vatavala, for his untiring commitment and words of encouragement towards development of SME segment of this country by founding an organization in this nature. Thank you, sir, for your personal commitment to make it success. And heartiest thanks to all senior officials represented from public and private banks for their valuable contribution and guidance and encouragement to make this event a success. My heartfelt with a lot of gratitude and respect to our distinguished guest speakers, not only sparing their valuable time for us to grace this occasion, but also motivating us with their commendable speeches on today's forum. And also, I will take this opportunity to thank distinguished invitees who have attended this event and the members of media and invested in interest of covering this event and all good hearts who worked behind the screen. Next most important sector, our entrepreneurs representing SME segment. Thank you all participation here for attending this event. Without them, we can't make the event success. Lastly, I would also like to thank organizer CMA Sri Lanka CEO and his team for their coordination to make this event a success in order to empower the country's SME sector. මම මේ අවස්ථාවේදී සියලු දෙනාටම සහභාගීත්වය අපේ SME sector එකේ ගනුදෙනු කාර්ය සියලු ගනුදෙනු බවතුන්ට මෙහි පැමිණීම වෙනුවෙන් ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙන අතර අද දවසේදී ඔබ සැමට ඉදිරියට පවත්නා වැඩමුළුවේදී අදහස් මාර්ග කරන්න ලැබේවා කියලා අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ස්තුති පැමිණීම. Thank you very much.
Right. So as was said, that concludes our inaugural. Everyone needs to reassemble here at 11:10, 10 minutes after 11, when the technical sessions will begin. But right now we have a recess or interval, and some refreshments are made available just outside, so please file out and be ready to be back here at 11:10. Thank you.